Welcome back to Floater Gang, guys. We're going to be doing the top 5 most underrated players in the league right now. Lauren, start us off.
Tough list. Number 5, I have to go with Terry Rozier, dude. My boy is a baller. He came by storm to the Boston Celtics, was a great defender, playmaker. He did a great job there. Unfortunately, he wasn't the answer. Got paid big with the Hornets a few seasons ago. He started off really hot. Great 3% shooter. Unfortunately, the fact that I have him on this list right now, he did just come off Loki as least efficient season with the Hornets, but they also didn't have the starting point guard. I think that those numbers will go up, but the man's a straight bucket. He's a great defender, like honestly, and like he's like his handles are crazy and like his off balance shots, his layup package, his athleticism. I just feel like he's one of those guys who doesn't get talked about. And one of my points to that is if you look up his highlight reels on YouTube, there's literally one of those first highlights will pop up is Terry Rozier highlights just to remind you that he's actually good because like people don't talk about Terry. Like when have you heard Terry Rozier anywhere on ESPN or really just basketball talk?
Honestly, he reminds me a lot of like a Tyrese Maxey type of player.
I can see that.
Especially
I
when he
mean,
was on Boston,
Yeah.
he was crazy with Boston, and he's still crazy to this
I
day.
think a role change would help out Terry a lot. I think a 6-man type role. I don't know. I mean the whole Charlotte organization is kind of in shambles right now, but and I don't like Steve Clifford as a coach particularly, but I think as a role on a contender as a 6-man, I think his value would really be highlighted, and it's just kind of difficult to see that on the Hornets, obviously.
yeah, interesting example. Imagine taking Terry Rozier from Malik Monk. I think they're actually quite similar players. I personally like Rozier more, but I think they're very interesting. I think they're
No,
very
I
similar.
think I think Rozier is a lot better than Monk
Yeah, I agree.
in terms of at least consistency. I mean, Monk can at times like just totally disappear. I mean, Rozier can too, but just less.
I
That's
think
true.
Rozier's defense is probably better too.
And he got great. I just think he can really do everything on the court, and he's just not talked about. I had to put a number 5 on that list. But Deacon, who you got number 5?
My number 5 pick is the former Knicks forward Obi Toppin, getting traded to the Pacers. The Pacers have done a whole lot this offseason, getting forwards Bruce Brown, or you could probably consider him a guard too. You got Bruce Brown, you got Jerice Walker, and I think Obi Toppin kind of has been like an under the radar move. I think he could realistically win the starting forward job. When Julius Randle was out for the Knicks, Obi Toppin, when he started, I mean, he averaged almost 20 points a game efficiently. I mean, he looked really good, particularly in last year's playoffs when Julius Randle was out. He filled that role nicely. Solid defender. He's a lob specialist. Can jump out of the gym. Obviously, he had a through under the leg. What's it called? Through the legs. Am I tripping?
Yeah, through the
Yeah, through the legs.
In preseason the other day. I don't know. I think he's an underrated pickup. I think next to Tyrese Maxey, or not Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Halliburton, he can be just a tremendous lob threat. And then obviously catch and shoot threes and stuff like that.
I like the pick. I don't hate it at all. I think overall accurate because he does have that talent. Only reason why I say he wouldn't quite be underrated because I do feel like people are a little bit high on Obi Toppin. People were kind of hyped to have him come to the Pacers. Maybe not quite as much as Bruce Brown to your point, but Bruce Brown does have a little bit more of a resume.
Yeah.
But like he does have the talent there. But I also do feel like he does get a lot of attention. But
Yeah.
good pick.
What you got, Marvin?
Yeah, my number 5. He doesn't normally get that many minutes, but we've seen that when he does get minutes, man is a straight bucket. Cam Thomas with the Brooklyn Nets. That man, if he plays, I mean, we saw him get multiple 40, 50-point games when he got starting minutes last season. Even towards the end of the season when he got less minutes in the preseason, with the few minutes he got, he was still a straight bucket. He's a pretty good playmaker too, but I mean, his shooting is just crazy. And I think he deserves to get a bigger role, and I hope he does this season because, I mean, with the stuff he's shown, he's really a great player, and he deserves minutes.
I mean, for him, it's really just he's got to work on the defense. I mean, he's a cone out there, and I think that's and Jock Vaughn, he's a defensive-minded coach. Obviously, the Nets have lots of plus defenders. So I think if he could become not even a plus defender, just a solid defender, I think he'll earn that starting spot. I mean, realistically, would you rather start Spencer Dinwiddie or Cam Thomas? Or I don't know. That's a bad comparison.
Ben Simmons.
Um, Yeah, Ben Simmons. Well, I mean, we'll see if he has a redemption year this year. But Cam Thomas just, I don't know. It's just the defense is hard for me to get by. Obviously, the offensive talent is
Well, he
absurd.
could even come off as sixth man too, like we were talking about over the year. I mean, just be a big spark plug, especially on offense off the bench too.
That's valid. I feel like as far as the public eye, he's not like super underrated because of like his big game. People are like, okay, Thomas like should get playing time. But no, I think like I agree, especially for basketball circumstances, it's a little bit weird to have him like go off for 40-point games in a row and then just kind of like die out. Like not like he died out because he was still playing. Like he was still
They just stopped
Minutes.
playing him.
balling, but he just literally wasn't like on the court. It was kind of weird.
I mean,
Yeah.
Jacques Vaughn, he likes his defense for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair too, like Cam Thomas kind of guy that just goes out there like it's almost when you go street ball, and you got one of those guys like he's just trying to score. Like he doesn't really care to pass the ball that much, as far as I'm aware. He's just trying to get bucket, and he's great at it, so not really that much of an issue. But
Yeah.
also, not to mention, talking about underrated guys, maybe my eyes should be higher. Maybe I don't know, but like he might have one of the most underrated booties in the league. He's right up there with Kyle Lowry.
All right.
Okay.
I'm just saying, bro.
But
I'm just saying, yo, I'm not like that. But like, if you go look at his highlight, am I the only one that realized? I'm like, bro, what the heck does he have like floating around behind him?
Lauren, are you watching basketball or are you watching butts?
I was trying to watch basketball, but there was something big waving across my screen, dude.
Okay.
Yo, you guys gonna watch? God, I'm just saying, bro. I was looking up his highlights, and I was like, what the heck is this guy? Like, people talk about Kyle. You guys see all the Kyle Lowry memes, dude. I'm just saying, you should get some memes too.
All right.
Let's
Anyways,
move on from that.
Valentine, who's your pick?
I'm not like that.
I don't know if y'all are gonna like this pick. I have Desmond Bain. I think if he is the number one player for his team,
Absolutely.
he is a top one of the best players I think in the NBA. Then
Yeah.
he will have so many opportunities, and he's shown it when John Morant's out. He takes over, and is. I think his like inside scoring is underrated. His his 3-point shooting
3-point.
is definitely top 5 in the league, maybe even top 3. I just think he doesn't get enough talk for how good he actually is. Like he gets talk, like he's a pretty good guy, you know.
Yeah.
But I think he's phenomenal, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I predicted him to win most improved. And obviously he's going to get the chance to, be in the spotlight with Ja out the first 25 games. I think he'll deliver. And yeah, he doesn't get talked about enough amongst like low or young stars or whatever. I mean, he's 25, so he's not like super young, but still.
He's pretty young.
I really like. I mean, like he's good. His efficiency is great. 3-point shooter. He's got handles too. But I really like his performance, especially in the playoffs, where we see other big names like Joel Embiid, reigning MVP, not show up, and Desmond Bain like absolutely was there. Like when John Morant was on the court, when he wasn't on the court, like he completely showed up.
He's really consistent, which I like.
Yeah.
He's a very smart player on the court. So,
And he's got the nice short arms. All right.
T-Rex.
let's see Lauren. Yeah, Lauren.
Number 4, baby. All right, dude. I got to throw out some love, man. I don't know. I think Marvin will definitely agree with me. Al Horford is number 4, dude. Al Horford is
Let's
one of
go.
the most underrated. Like to me, it's just shocking. I feel like Deacon might disagree. I don't know where he's at with this one, but to people that don't know, I don't know because I'll get to it.
Don't just attack Deacon only.
My bad. But as far as the defender, I think he's a top 10 defender in the league, if not top 5. He's top 3 in defensive rating on the Celtics. We see him consistently be the guy to make the difference for the Celtics to guard guys like Giannis and Joel. And he's getting older, so he has more struggle with guys like Giannis, who's faster. So at this point, he is getting a little, but like we've seen him do this the last few seasons, and like people be hyping up other guys. Celtics had Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Al Horford is literally arguably like the perfect icon of a role player because when they need him to shoot threes, he added the 3-point shot, and he's insanely efficient. He's a incredibly good playmaker for a big man, and like I said, the defense is there. He's got a post bag. Like Al Horford does not get enough talk at all.
The highest catch and shoot 3-point percentage in the league.
Probably the best 3-and-D player in the league.
Why did I just want to talk about
I'm just
this.
trying to think. But yeah.
You know, we got me and Marvin here, and Lauren goes, so I don't know how Deacon feels about this. So
Okay,
Well,
so
he
I
said he
meant
knew I would agree with it or like it.
I feel like Deacon. I mean, I look sorry. I just feel like I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think Al Horford might be in my top 5 defense, which I think most people think is a hot take. I know Marvin would somewhat agree with me. I think Valentine does too. We've talked about it before. That's the reason I called you out. But I think most people would say it's a hot take. I think he's at least top 10 defender in the season, at league, and I think even most people would agree that might be a hot take. But like, if you watch him and what he's capable of,
I don't know. I think I mean, I don't think it's a bad take. I mean, he's a
It's
great
out
defender.
there.
okay, all right, that's good.
I think we had this discussion. Who was I said Dylan Brooks was a top 10 perimeter defender, and then you guys mentioned
Top 10
Horford.
defender.
No, I said perimeter defender.
I think actually Horford might have been Rudy Gobert. Anyway, one of the discussions we've
Maybe
had.
I can't remember.
I
Yeah,
definitely
maybe
never
it was
brought up
Rudy Gobert.
Horford as a better perimeter defender than Brooks. But he is actually that's one of my points with underrated because he can guard the perimeter pretty well. Like he's just underrated. That great definition of underrated.
Oh, I like that pick.
All
And
right.
so who you got?
Okay, so feel free to throw a
Blow the
flag
flag.
because this dude hasn't played yet. I'm doing Brandon Miller. Second overall pick. All right, guys. Second overall pick.
Flag. I'm throwing the flag. I'm throwing the flag. Change
I
that
don't
one.
care. I'm still going to talk about Brandon Miller because he's been amazing in the preseason.
Yeah, he has. I agree with that.
I mean, he was the second overall pick. He's getting no hype. I feel like if Scoot Henderson was drafted at 2 and Brandon Miller was drafted at 3, no one would have a problem with Brandon Miller. You know, I mean, he has all the flashes to be an elite wing, all the tools. Obviously he had that crazy poster, but he hasn't been shooting the 3 ball well, but his 3-point shot looks good. His inside touch looks good. His playmaking looks good. His defending looks good. I don't know. I think we've been really sleeping on Brandon Miller. Obviously he's a rookie, so what you got?
Yeah, I also have something to say. But Lauren, go first.
Go ahead.
I would like to potentially write my apology form for Brandon Miller. I mean, my take was I always believed his ceiling was arguably one of the highest ceilings in this draft class. I also just saw a lot of I don't know how likely he is to hit that ceiling, but based off right now, he's looked a lot better than I thought he might look.
Yeah,
especially this early on. So
it's like I said during the summer league. Once you put a solid team around him, or a team full of actual NBA players, he's going to look better.
Yeah, that wasn't even that had a lot of different concerns about just a lot of parts of the game seemed to have maybe some just slight holes or weaknesses to it.
Yeah.
But he seems to go out there. I just like a lot of his attitude, like the way he's been just throwing out dunks like that and just taking shots. It shows a lot of confidence, and he's been able to do that at a pretty good rate. So I like that direction he's heading, and I think he is heading in a better direction than I would have anticipated. And I mean, he had the potential always. I just didn't really expect him to hit it.
He's got the killer mentality for sure.
I don't really like the pick. He's a rookie, and I don't really consider him underrated. Top 5. He was the number 2 draft pick.
Yeah, I agree.
But I do got to give him credit. He's been amazing, and he has a bright future ahead of him. I did kind of hate on him a little too much, I think, at the beginning. Kind of same as Lauren. You know, I saw some I thought bad things that he was gonna do, but he hasn't shown that. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
I mean, I like my rationale for him being underrated. He's like 5th in rookie of the year as the number 2 pick. I mean, we just never see that. You know, obviously I know there's the Chet factor, and he's being carried over to this year, but
I don't think that's underrated, low-key. Just with Wemby, Scoot, and Chet alone, they'll use one other guy like Amen Thompson, who's crazy, or Asad Thompson, his brother.
But see, Amen Thompson isn't going to even start, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, but Asad Thompson, I just feel like with this draft class particularly, I don't think that makes him underrated.
I do, because, I mean, he was the number 2 overall pick. He was the best player in college basketball, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know. I think he was extremely... I just think he's not being talked about nearly enough.
But I mean, considering that Victor Wembanyama and the Thompson brothers did not play college basketball.
I know, but I mean, even if the Thompson twins play college basketball, Brandon Miller still earned that number 2 overall selection.
Scoot
I just realized only 1 out of the top 5 picks played college basketball.
I think it's the first time ever that's happened.
Probably.
I mean,
Anyway. Any more Brandon Miller? Who's Marvin? You got number 4?
What you got, Marvin?
I got Victor Wembanyama. No,
That's it.
I do have a pretty young guy though. We've mentioned him for possibly getting most improved in our awards video, or potentially winning scoring title. I'm gonna go Anthony Simons. We've talked about him before. Great young stud. We've seen what he can do without Dame. Now he's gonna have a whole season without Dame. He'll be number 1 or 2 option most likely on that team with Scoot Henderson. He's great on offense. His defense is pretty solid as well. He can shoot the lights out. He can play make pretty well too. I mean, he's just a really great young guy, and there's so much potential for him.
I mean, yeah, Scoot's getting all the attention. And then also you got the trade for DeAndre Ayton. I just feel like, and I saw like ESPN, they posted like the new Trailblazers depth chart right after the trade, and Anthony Simons wasn't even starting. No.
I don't
I mean-
get that. Like, start him over Sharp, bro. I don't care. Like,
Oh, for
He's
sure.
he's arguably the best guy on the team. Like,
I think I don't even know if it's an argument. I mean,
yeah, honestly, man, you can say Scoot maybe coming in, like depending on what
he's
he
top
does.
2. He's top
Yeah,
2.
I mean, yeah, Scoot obviously, but he's still a rookie, so I can't put him in
Exactly.
that category yet. But yeah, I mean, Anthony Simons is really good. I mean, the times he was without Dame, he was putting up like 27 points a game.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, no question.
what you got that?
I got Tyus Jones. Every year in every single category, his stats have gone up. Last year was his best season actually. He was also under John Moran, who just gets insane amount of minutes. Tyus Jones still did get a fair amount of minutes. He got 24 minutes actually. Or 24 minutes per game, whatever. But I'm excited. Like if you see when John Morant's if John Morant's out, Tyus Jones is really good for the team. They had a great record with him.
He's part of the reason the Grizzlies had such a good record
Yeah.
without Ja, because he just doesn't make mistakes and he's so consistent.
I don't think he's a star player type mentality, but he's like a great role player. He knows what's right for the team. He's very smart on decisions that he makes on the court. And I think with the Wizards, that could be really fun, even though they have Jordan Poole and we've seen what he already can do. He dropped 41 points in a preseason game already.
1 for 15 the next game.
I think Tyus Jones is not only be really fun, it's gonna be interesting to watch how good he is, but I think he's gonna be critical of the Wizards' success because Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma are very known to not be those kind of playmaking, selfless kind of guys. So I think Tyus Jones would be an absolutely key part of distributing that ball.
He's very successful winner, actually. He's a winning type player.
Yeah, I like the pick. Definitely a great pick.
Yeah, and not to mention too, his assist to turnover ratio is really good as well. Great playmaker, great leader. It's just so much fun.
I mean the Wizards. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be any good this year, but I mean Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma are going to have a lot of success because Tyus Jones is their point guard. I mean, he's a really reliable guy, like you said. Assist to turnover ratio is crazy. He's just gonna be consistent with the ball. He's never down too far. In terms of like he doesn't make stupid mistakes. I mean he's just the perfect point guard, kinda. Especially when you got other stars around him.
Yeah. Lauren, your pick?
All right, so my last one, I'll hold for two, but it doesn't get enough talked about. And I even hear some people saying like they hate him. Oh, like some old guy can't do crap. Like don't score 5 points a game. So kind of a little hate there, but my number 3 pick, he's really doesn't get a lot of talk, but when he does get talk, it's really hate. And so he's absolutely on my underrated list. Markelle Fultz, he gets so much hate. Like literally people are like, oh, the Magic don't have a point guard, like he's poop, like he's garbage. He can't shoot, and a lot of that stems from his days in Philly, which when he was in Philly for one, Philly was kind of a mess. They were kind of on the come up with Embiid, and he had a lot of injury struggles up there. It really wasn't a good place for him. But since he's been with the Magic, he has been absolutely one of the most underrated players in the league. He's been a good scorer. Like he's a tall, athletic point guard. He can dribble. He can score. He in fact has the second best clutch time field goal percentage with 25 plus makes. And so they're not all. They're most of them are going to be 3-pointer. I'm not saying he's a great shooter, and he isn't a great shooter by any means. But he gets a lot of hate for being a really solid point guard and player that's able to really kind of compete with anybody. Like he's not afraid to go in there and dunk or put the layup on anybody. He'll give you some nice highlights and he really takes care of the ball.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans just, they saw the Philly days and then, oh, we got traded the Magic. He's doing all right. It's a nice feel good story, but he's a legit NBA player at this point.
Absolutely.
He could pass the rock, like you said, he'll go dunk on you. Obviously he's going to take care of the ball. I don't know. He's kind of like Tyus Jones in a way where he's never too up, he's never too down. I think he has a higher ceiling than Tyus Jones for sure. And he's shown it the past couple of years. But also he just got to stay healthy.
He also has an insane athleticism. He can.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, coming out of college, that was his sticking point. He's
got finesse
he's
though.
point guard. Yeah.
He's a big point guard with athleticism that you put finesse with that too, and that's just something that's really fun to watch and something that's hard to guard. And he's a good defender too, by the way.
The Magic, I think, are a big time threat with their guards. Anthony Black, 6'7" point guard,
Yeah.
6'5" Markelle Fultz point guard.
They definitely have a type in that guard position in terms of a defensive minded guard that could jump out of the gym. And struggles to shoot the ball.
True. Anyway, who's your number 3?
Me? Oh yeah.
Deacon. My bad.
I got a guy that is a former rookie of the year. Actually last year, Paolo Banchero. We had a discussion a little earlier talking about how we would you guys argued LaMelo over Paulo. I mean, I said LaMelo over Paulo as well. But I also think that I feel like for a number 1 overall pick that just averaged 20 points per game, he's just not talked about at all. You guys had Franz over him, which is fine. But I just think he is truly one of those guys that can be a generational talent that can lead. That can be a 27 point per game scorer, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, kind of like a Jason Tatum type. A good defender too. I mean, we saw it in Team USA. He was like their main rim protector when Jaren Jackson Jr. was at the game, and he did well with it. I think he's like in terms of recent number 1 overall picks, he's like the least talked about. And I'm not sure if that's because he's on Orlando or I don't know. But and even at the end of the year, Jalen Williams was kind of getting the shine instead of Paolo Banchero. I don't know. He had a really good rookie season, and for part of it, he couldn't hit like a single 3, and he still averaged 20 points a game. He doesn't need to shoot 3s to impact the game. That's what I like about him.
I think it's a good take. He doesn't get talked about enough. I think most people don't underrate him as far as like talent because like people are like he's crazy good. Like everyone's like tell you like Paolo's crazy good and like he beat some records like like I think he was like one of the only ones since like Shaq to average like that many points. I don't remember what the record was. So people like know he's good, but I fully agree with you. He really doesn't get a lot of like talk or hype, and probably related to Orlando. Like Markelle Fultz is on there too. So
I don't really hate the pick, but like he won Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
ESPN's top 100 list. He's number 30 over John Morant.
Oh yeah.
So like,
True.
I don't know if he's really hated on really, but he's ranked number 30 in the NBA right now according to ESPN.
Well, I think number 30. Well, also those rankings are projections for this upcoming year. So
still really high.
Which is still really high.
It shows that he's
I don't
not
think
that
he's over
great.
John. I still think he can be that high by the time next year ends. I think he's that talented.
I don't know. Number 3 spot for underrated. It's not a bad pick, but not my favorite pick at the same time. So
yeah, I agree.
What you got, Martin?
This kind of I don't know. I like him a lot, and I do think he's underrated. It might seem kind of weird. Kind of it has a similar role to Al Horford, but Steven Adams on the Grizzlies. I feel like his impact is kind of underrated. He tries to impact not even just the game, but just the team and like chemistry, always trying to bring a good mood. But even on the court too, his defense is pretty good, is honestly fantastic. He'll rebound the ball. He knows what he needs to do, and he's fantastic at what he needs to do.
We saw it in the Lakers Grizzlies series. They really missed Steven Adams.
Mm-hmm.
They were getting bullied in the paint, and obviously Steven Adams is like the strongest player in the league.
Gigantic, yeah.
And his rebound is amazing. Obviously, he's he's probably the best screen setter in the league. With every star point guard, we see Steven Adams just thrive with them. And he's just the perfect guy for like a guy like Ja to have. Just a great rebounder. A good inside threat. Just got a nice touch.
I don't hate or love the pick necessarily. Just because like everyone, I feel like people love Steven Adams. I mean, he's been hurt, so it's not hard to talk about someone who's not on the court. Everyone loves Steven Adams. Like Aquaman, just he's super cool. He's a goat. End of discussion. But anyway, but yeah, I know what you mean. And plus, like he doesn't really he can't shoot. There's a lot of things he can't do in his game.
Yeah.
But everything he's supposed to do, he honestly does like flawlessly. He sets screens.
At a
He
very
plays
high
with the
level.
guard. He builds chemistry. He can dunk the ball. He's got the hook shot, and he plays great defense. Like the Grizzlies, in large part, we all have the Grizzlies being extremely well ranked, despite missing Ja for a few games, because Steven Adams will anchor a defense with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Marcus Smart. That's a scary defense to play against. That will be that could be an all-time elite defense.
He just anchors a team, like
Yeah,
in general, just in any aspect. He just anchors a team.
He's coming to what a big was like supposed to be like, like in the 80s, whatever.
What he used to be.
That's like how he plays. He's like a true big, you know what I mean? Like you see Kristaps out here now, he's shooting threes, not really playing necessarily a true big. But he kind of just plays a role of a true center in a way.
Yeah.
What I really like about that pick is I think he's the most mature NBA player, which I think really somewhat held him together last year. With the Dylan Brooks, John Morant situations, I think he was holding the team still together in that situation, which I think really helped them with the crazy off-court issues that they have.
Yeah.
You know what team could use him really well? The Minnesota Timberwolves. They need an anchor.
Well, the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love the Dallas.
I mean, like anchor-wise for the Timberwolves, he'd probably set everyone straight pretty
the
fast.
Timberwolves just have a whole lot of egos, and
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy Butler tried to go over there, but yeah, he just.
I don't even know if he could fix it, Steven.
Yeah.
That is Rudy Gobert is crazy.
Well,
Cal Anderson's crazy.
But let's say in theory, right, you trade like Gobert or whatever for Adams, and you have Adams there instead of Gobert.
you're gonna have to trade a lot for.
Even though honestly, Cat's the biggest problem there.
On paper, bro, 3 defensive player. You have 5 defense player of the year awards on the
Yeah.
Grizzlies in that case. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That would be crazy. But I think Steven Adams is kind of,
Yeah, I don't think Rudy Gobert would be that good of a
I don't
fit
think
though.
that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it would be a weird fit. But I mean, Rudy Gobert is also, not Rudy Gobert. Steven Adams is also a sensational rebounder. And,
Offensive rebounding. one
we
of the best.
saw Jaren Jackson. I mean, like you said earlier, he sometimes struggles with rebounding, but Steven Adams completely picks up that slack.
Mhm.
Even
So-
Adams was actually the best offensive rebounder last season.
Yeah,
Got the
I mean,
most
I think a whole lot. Whenever Andre Drummond gets starter minutes, obviously he's going to take that. But Steven Adams is right there at number 2.
Even Adams is always top 3, I think. So,
Yeah.
Valentine, who's your number 3?
I actually have Al Horford at number 3.
Hey,
We've kind of discussed it, but I want to add a little more. 3 seasons ago, he was with the Sixers,
Yep.
right? 3 seasons ago.
Forgot about that.
They purposely got him because he's one of the only guys that can guard Joel Embiid. And then
Reigning MVP.
the next season, he joined the Celtics. The Celtics went to the championship. Unfortunately, they lost, but they still went to the championship for the first season. Al Horford
Well,
came back.
actually, the next season he went to the Thunder, and then the next season. Anyway, sorry, I just have to correct.
Well, when he went to Celtics, they went to the championship. That's what I'm trying to say. He makes a lot of difference for each team, and his defense is underrated. Like Lauren said, considered really top 5, which may be a hot take, but I agree with that. I think he is top 5. He does not get the stats necessarily as a lot of great defenders, in my opinion. But
I mean, we saw it just in the playoffs. Joel Embiid, like in the
3 blocks in like first half, right? On Joel.
Yeah, I mean, even in that fourth quarter, I think it was game 5, game 6. Yeah, I think it was game 6. Joel could do absolutely nothing. Anyways.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I already said it. But to Valentine's point, just overall as a role player, he's underrated for what he does all the roles he needs to. But to the defensive point, what Valentine said, I think most people talking basketball don't rank him in their top 20 on defense, and I think that's just really disrespectful and underrating, and just not really watching a guy and what he actually brings to the table.
Just because you have all these like freaks that they're 7 foot whatever and they can move like crazy.
I don't think
Al Horford is just like kind of traditional, big on
He's
defense
just very smart, very good footwork, good hands.
for sure.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard a team say it or slash admit it, that they got a guy just because their star player struggles against him, and he can't do his thing
Yeah.
when they play his team or whatever, and that just shows how effective he is. And what
Like,
type of
like a need with the scoring title. So
and he again to add on like kind of what Al or Steven Adams, he's a very mature player, Al Horford. Which I think
Yeah.
helps a lot of teams in a way, like the team chemistry and stuff. But
Yeah. For sure.
Lauren, you're up.
number 2, I got a guy he just doesn't get talked about at all for many reasons. Mostly because he's kind of taken the backseat on an amazing team. Chris Middleton. I mean, the guy does everything. And I'm talking about defense. I'm talking about you look at him, he's got the moves, he's got the handles, he's got the shooting, he's got the layup package, he can dunk it, he's big, he plays wing defense, he's not even bad inside defense. And I'm talking about a guy that shoots efficiency. I'm talking about a guy that all these things considered, it also does what star players do. He makes clutch shots at a high rate, and he's proven to do that. And this guy is just hard to talk about. People know he's overall good, but he's taking that kind of that backseat to Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then they got Drew Holiday now with Dame. But Chris Middleton, I mean, people know the Bucks are one of those favorite teams. It's because Middleton is on that team, but he doesn't get that name recognition. Like
The last time he was fully healthy for a season, they won the championship, and Chris Middleton hit. I mean, on like countless big shots. I mean, he hit the big shot against Miami in the first round, and then he had a big shot in Game 7 against the Nets to take the lead, and then he had a 40-point game in the finals. And I mean, he was at the right place at the right time, seemingly every single time, and just kept making big shots. And like you said, he does everything. He's a solid playmaker. He's obviously a good defender. The question with him, I think, right now is can he stay healthy and can he get back to that form? Because
there is no hole in his game, in my opinion. Like the health is his issue, but there is no hole in his game. He plays like a superstar.
his role is going to be even smaller this year with Chris Middleton, or not with Chris Middleton, with Dame coming in. But I think now he's all the more important because they lack a little bit depth. So I think what he's going to have to do is be probably that secondary creator for that bench unit. I mean, he's going to start, but I think he'll play with the bench a lot.
I think his defensive too will be a lot more noticed and important for the team.
I mean, I think he might have to guard the best player on the best guard that is on every team.
I feel a lot of people, watchers of the NBA, have forgotten about Chris Middleton. In the award-winning episode that we did, Lauren Lauren said Chris Middleton for like clutch play of the year, which I totally agree. He's underrated for his clutchness. No one talks about how clutch he is. And like now that they got Dame, they're like, oh, the big two, Giannis and Dame. I think it's a big three. Or big four.
Absolutely.
But Chris Middleton, like you said, fully healthy, they won the championship. He was really good in this last playoffs. Drew Holiday was not the best. But he also wasn't talked about again in this playoffs. Chris Middleton was a big role into why there were some sticking with the Heat, which they probably shouldn't have been just sticking with them. They should have won. But with Chris Middleton, he just doesn't get any more credit for how good and how important he is for the team.
Yeah, just one more thing. Like it shows in my top 10 under 25. Something I value personally is a superstar is great, but something I think is even more valuable. And I guess you can call it the Shohei Ohtani effect because in baseball he's got that value of pitching and batting, but is a superstar that can also play role player, and that's Chris Middleton. That's why I like some of those young guys. I talk about Maxey, but Chris Middleton this year he's gonna be, like you said, he's gonna be critical for that team because he's also not afraid to play that role behind Dame and Giannis, and I think that makes him that much more valuable as any team because you can see him go to the Pistons and he'd be amazing there. But you can just see him go to any team and he's able to do his part all the way from superstar to role player, whatever.
Yes, for sure. All right.
Deacon, who's your number 2?
Yeah, so Marvin, you're not gonna like this one. I got Trae Young. So I mean, in terms of this offseason, we were hearing about trade rumors, or does Quinn Snyder want to build around Trae Young? I think and I think last year was a rough year for Trae. Obviously, his shooting numbers dipped, his scoring dipped. I think his assist numbers went up, but nonetheless, I think it was an adjustment period. Obviously, I think him and Nate McMillan had bad blood. Obviously, he brought in another ball handler like DeJounte Murray. But now I think with Quinn Snyder, a whole offseason under his regimen, he's been moving on off ball a lot better in preseason. I just think he's going to take a big step up, and I think he's going to go back into that tier of, okay, yeah, this dude's a top tier point guard. Because I mean he kind of fell out last year. I don't think it was deserving, but I mean, there's a lot of hate around his name. Obviously, there's a lot of bad stipulations around his name. But I think he's going to remind everyone this year why he led his team to the Eastern Conference Finals.
I think. You go ahead, Marvin.
Go ahead.
I actually don't fully disagree. I think it's a little high, but I definitely agree with the fact that he's an underrated player. One of my least favorite players, but I do agree he is a pretty underrated player in the league, especially considering the role he has and the numbers he puts up every night.
Yeah, piggyback off what Marvin said, I agree. People know he's good, and there's a lot of questions. Defense, team leadership, the team didn't perform despite him being overall healthy. So that's kind of where a lot of that comes from, obviously. But I fully agree, just based off the fact that most people, when they're thinking of top guards in the league, Trae Young doesn't really come to mind right now, and he should obviously be one of the guys that should be kind of in that name conversation. So just because of that, I think he's underrated.
Yeah, he's had a interesting time. You know, he used to be overhyped when he first kind of joined the league, and now he's underrated. And
Yeah.
I'm actually, I guess there's not really more to add to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think also the Hawks found their recipe once again for what got them to the Eastern Conference Finals, which was a bunch of good defenders, a bunch of good shooters, and then Trae Young leading the show. Obviously, you brought in DeJounte Murray. He's been working on a 3-point shot. Sadiq Bey you brought in. He made a huge impact just as a 3-and-D type guy. Jalen Johnson's going to come in, be a secondary, or I guess a third ball handler type guy. And then you got Onyeka Okongwu, Clint Capella, the lob threats. Off the bench, you got Bogdan Bogdanovic. I think they brought in Adrian Griffin last year. He had a great rookie year. He's kind of had a rough summer league in preseason, but I think he'll turn it around. I just feel like they got the recipe back, and under Quinn Snyder, you know, those teams shoot the 3 ball a ton, and I think that's going to be best for Trae Young.
Speaking of Lob City, I think though John Collins is going to be very important, or it's going to bring him down a good amount because Trae Young and John Collins had that connection.
It on the court it seemed like that, but it just seemed like they didn't really like each other off the court. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think it'll affect it on court slightly, just in terms of like the pick and roll game. But it looks like they're even getting away from that a little bit more and focusing more on spreading the ball, off ball movement, shooting the 3, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So who's your number 2, Marvin?
I think Valentin and Lauren might agree. I don't know how you feel. Might be a
I
little
was calling out Deacon. Sorry.
We talked about this, I think, on the superlatives and the Western predictions. Dennis Schroeder came off the bench for the Lakers last season. Absolutely great role player, 6-man, especially in that scenario. Looks like he'll be a starter now in Toronto. You saw that in the crunch time. He was one of the guys the Lakers would put in for defense. He can shoot really well. He's really good at driving as well. Really nice player, and I feel like he honestly doesn't get talked about at all by anyone. But he's a really good was a really good 6-man. I think he'd be a great starting point guard now too.
Deacon, so I want to apologize for calling you out about the all Horford thing. Just for the record, it came off wrong. It came off wrong. But anyway,
guys, the last time Dennis Schroeder had a substantial role on a team, he won 6-man of the year. I could not agree more that his role in Toronto is only going to elevate his play. I don't know if he's better than Fred VanVleet is, but I think he's absolutely underrated. I mean, we saw it in the Lakers. You know, they switched out D'Lo for Dennis Schroeder a lot in crunch time just because he was a great defender. He brought the energy.
Mhm.
He's also a solid 3-point shooter. We saw that big shot he hit in the play-in. I mean, he's the type of guy that you want on your team. Obviously, it's tough for the Raptors losing Fred VanVleet, but I think they're not gonna. Dennis Schroeder's not going to skip a beat, and I think he's going to do that. It's going to be really good.
He also brings, I think, a lot of energy to every team, which is like really good. Like gets the team going, even if they're down by a good amount. He just keeps them always in the game in a way. Like I don't know, he's just always hyping up everyone. Like with the Lakers, he was always a loud guy. He's always talking on the court. I don't know. I just think he's again. I know I've been saying this a lot. Again, he's a very mature player, which I think is again important for every team to have at least one mature player.
We saw him ball out in the FIBA World Cup too for Germany. I mean, he was their best player. He won MVP in that World Cup too. I mean, he's just a fantastic player, and he's shown too that he can take a lot of roles, whether that's 6-man or now even starting point guard. I think he'll thrive too, like he was in Germany. I mean, he's just a fantastic point guard and knows what he's doing.
I think the right system is also important for him. I mean, we saw it with a lot of ball handlers on OKC, and him. He was able to thrive, play off ball a little bit, and then also just be like a scoring threat, not have to play make it the whole time. The Raptors, obviously, you got Pascal, you got Scotty Barnes, even OG can play make a little bit. Even Gary Trent, and I think it's going to be helpful for him.
Yeah, just looking at underrated, this guy, just keep in mind, right now coming off a Western Conference Finals run with the Lakers, obviously FIBA championship, but guys, this guy was almost out of the league. Like he would have been struggling for a team to sign him. I think he got paid very little money. And this is a guy, like we just said, he makes a big impact. He can do pretty much everything you need a point guard to do for the most part. And this is a guy that somehow was almost out of the league. So that just to me is the exclamation point on him being underrated.
And a lot of people forget back on his first stint with the Lakers, he almost earned a $84 million contract. I mean, obviously he declined it, he kind of fumbled the bag, but he used to be that guy. And I think he can get back to that type of play.
I agree. Valentine, you're number 2.
So I know Lauren Marvin likes this deep. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I have Javon Carter. We've seen what he can do when he gets minutes and like when he's like the star player with the Bucks. He dropped a 30 and a 40-point game.
Just the Thunder.
Not surprised. Thunder and Spurs kind of get highlight reeled on. But I think he's gonna be very important for the Bulls, especially since Lonzo is still gonna be out, and he's gonna get good minutes and good playing time and playing along with Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan.
Him and Alex Caruso in the backcourt together.
Yeah, I think that's a very deadly dude. Or he's very deadly on the court and unexpected. I feel like for a lot of teams, they won't be expecting him to be able to do this, and then he's just gonna go crazy.
Yeah. I love Javon Carter. We've talked about him before, but he's an amazing pick. Honestly, I want him on my list. I guess I just didn't have him on my list. But Javon Carter is an underrated in every aspect. He literally just barely came into the NBA spotlight last season. I've liked him since college. He did an amazing job clamping Trae Young in college, and he plays good offense too. So when he got drafted, he for the longest time really didn't get any minutes, and I was just like, what happened, Javon Carter? I know he's a baller. I don't know if he fell off last season, guys. Like Drew Holiday, when he wasn't playing, Javon Carter would go in, drop 30-point games, and like he would go in there looking exactly like a starting point guard. And so I think Valley nail on the head will be key for them. And like great defender, just he does everything. Like he literally does everything, and just barely came in the NBA spotlight. And no one talks about the signing that the Bulls made of him. Like the Bulls lack on signings, and Zach LaVine called them out, but Javon Carter was a great signing for them.
Yeah, overall, I hated the Bulls offseason. I mean, just because they kind of committed to mediocrity, but the Javon Holland pickup is perfect for that. That's no disrespect to Javon, but he's a solid. I mean, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. He was a good signing. I was just getting my words mixed up. Obviously he defends like hell. He can score the ball. I think he's the perfect backup point guard in any situation. I think this year he could get some starting reps too. So,
yeah, I don't think we have more to add on to that. So more.
Number one, baby. This one, I mean, it surprises me, but like I had to put him at number one because I myself sleep on him consistently. I sleep on him consistently. We talk about Maxi being the third guy on Sixers. My number one is Tobias Harris, guys. Guys, like I don't even know. I'm not even a big Tobias Harris fan, but I forget he's on the team. I forget he's in the NBA. And if you go look at what he's been able to do, having almost 40% 3-point seasons, having being able to put up 30-point games, he had like the huge 37-point game from that in the playoffs. Like he can, for one, he's an amazing defender. He can do pretty much everything on offense because if you look at him a little bit, I'm not saying he is like him, but if you look at him a little bit, you can see a little bit of Melo in his game, like the way he kind of shoots, he kind of does a little post up, and we know how hype Melo is. I'm not saying he is Melo, but you can see that.
I know what you're talking about. His mid range game, he also shoots like him. He kind of has that like he jumps really high and then shoots it kind of over his head.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's number one worthy though for underrated. I can see him number 4, number 3, but I think number one's fortunate.
No one talks to him, but I'm curious what Martin has to say.
Yeah.
I love the pick in the sense of like I like the player a lot. I just disagree with the underrated aspect just because he's not that guy anymore. Part of it is usage. So you can throw that in there. But because of that too, a lot of times you do see when he does get the ball, he either kind of gets more scared to shoot or he's not as consistent anymore as he used to be. But overall, I mean, if he, like you said, I mean, I think if you were like a top 2 option again, he might fall under that ranking again. But I think right now with the situation he's in and like the ball touches he gets, I don't think he can compete for the number 1 spot as most underrated player.
I'm with Lauren on this one. Well, he's not number 1 for me, but I think he's definitely underrated. We saw when James Harden came over, Tobias Harris's role completely changed. When he was teammates with Ben Simmons. Sorry. Obviously with Ben Simmons, he was relied on to be more of a secondary scoring option. He had the ball a lot more. He could create his own shot. With James Harden, he's reduced to more of like a catch and shoot guy, which is not his game. And he almost made an all-star game back a couple of years ago with Ben Simmons. So I think he can get back to that level, and we see glimpses of it every now and then. But right now, I just don't think he's in the right situation. Also, I think the contract, he has such a big contract. People are like, he's supposed to be putting up superstar numbers, so people overrate or think he's overrated a lot. But I don't know.
I feel like it's kind of funny that me and Mark disagree with Tobias Harris because he loves him a lot more than I do. But like Tobias Harris, like I don't care if he doesn't get the role. And for one, like I said earlier, for me, I actually value people that can be stars and are able to also take on different roles. And he's been able to prove that in Philadelphia with kind of Joel being that guy. And he's the number 4 guy, but he does a great job at it. And people, I do agree the money might be an issue, but like guys, I forget he's in the league. I don't hear anyone talking about Tobias Harris for the most part. Everyone's there's some trade rumors, but there's no love for Tobias Harris as far as I can find it for a guy that can play incredibly solid defense, like for a guy that can give you 30-point playoff games when needed, when your MVP and scoring title champ doesn't show up in the playoffs. And this guy, we see him every once in a while to step up to the plate. And I just feel like for what he's done in his career, yes, he did it kind of on teams that weren't particularly well broadcast and not like hype team, but he's been really good throughout all of his career. He doesn't get any talk.
I think we all agree that he's underrated. Martin didn't really seem too much as like top 5 underrated. But he's definitely an underrated player. His name is not big anymore at all.
Yeah.
So
I just think for his production right now, I don't think he's underrated. But for I think what he could be in a different system, and maybe Nick Nurse lets him play like he used to again. But I don't know. I don't think his fit with James Harden. And then, like, being a 4th option, that's just not his role, it seems like.
Yeah.
I agree.
I do think this season with Nick Nurse and most likely Harden not playing, I mean, he's not showing up to practices and he wants out, doesn't think his relationship can be fixed. So I don't think he's playing with the Sixers. So with that, I could see Tobias Harris getting a bigger role and getting more love too. Especially, let's say, right, Embiid misses a few games and then you have Maxey and Harris carrying the show. I could see Harris coming up a little bit again this season.
yeah.
Who's your number 1, Deacon?
All right, so I got Jalen J-Dub Williams as my number one. He had obviously the second half of his rookie year, when he really started to push for that rookie of the year campaign. He averaged like almost 20 on insane efficiency, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. And this year he put on like 18 pounds of muscle. I mean, he's looking huge. Yeah, he looked pretty good defending Giannis the other day in preseason. But I just when you talk about OKC's core, you talk about Shea, obviously, and then you talk about Chet. I think Jalen Williams can really be that guy that separates himself as a secondary guy. Obviously, he did that during his rookie year to an extent. I think he could be. I think he will be the guy that is the second leading scorer for a playoff team, and but he just doesn't get talked about. Similar to Paulo, both of those guys are kind of overshadowed by this upcoming year's rookie class.
I mean, I love J Dub. I love J Dub. I know I told Marvin and Valentine before he was even in the NBA League, before the draft, he was one of my top 5 prospects in that draft. I love J Dub. I personally think like he's in my head, he's the number 2 guy behind SGA, like no doubt. Even though I mean Chet's there and he'll be good. I just love J Dub. I don't know. I don't know if I'd say he's underrated. I feel like people like J Dub, but
Mhm.
I feel like it's
It's kind of like what I said for Lawrence. I think he's just not number one worthy in my
yeah, I don't think he's number 1 overrated. Underrated. But I'm expecting a big season. I hope we I hope
Well, yeah. So part of it is obviously I don't think that draft class in general gets enough talk for how good they were. But also I think for the role or for the season he's about to have, he doesn't get enough talk. Obviously he was number 95 on the ESPN Top 100, which is ridiculously low in my opinion. I think he's gonna. I mean, and just based off what he did last year, if he just does what he did in the second half of last year and brings it to this year, he'll be borderline all-star type guy.
That's true. That's true.
What you got, Marvin? You're number one.
I don't know. This is tough. Like, I mean, like you guys are saying, for both of Deacons and Lawrence, they're like not number 1 worthy, but then at the same time, like, who is number 1 worthy? Like, I honestly
my guy. No, I'm
am
kidding.
really
I don't even
struggling.
think my guy's number one worthy. I'm definitely missing someone, but I
Yeah,
just can't.
I agree. I don't even know who the best fit for number 1 is. I have a really hard
It might
time.
be Chris Middleton, honestly.
It might be, honestly. I don't know. I'm gonna go. I have Ben Simmons on here right now. I honestly don't love the pick, but I do feel like partially, I mean, he hasn't played much either. But I mean, I feel like he still is like underrated for what he brings to a team when he plays on defense and on offense. Um, I think also debatably a top 5 defender when healthy, can guard every position, fantastic playmaker. Like we said with him and Tobias Harris, he's able to bring people's offensive roles out more because he obviously isn't a great shooter and he knows that. So I think he looks out to help other people more to bring their offense out. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if I love the pick, but I have Simmons at number 1. Kind of hard to really evaluate considering his playing time the last season or 2.
Yeah, I really like the pick though as well. I mean, even last year, I mean, people were saying, he deserves to be out of the league. He totally robbed the Nets in terms of what the contract was. He was still an elite defender last year and a pretty good playmaker. It's just the shooting struggles, or his refusal to shoot the ball, or his refusal to play at times as well. But I really think this year he's going to flip the script, go back to his Philadelphia days. Even if it's just like his last year in Philadelphia, he was still all defensive team. I mean, he was still borderline defensive player of the year type guy, as well as making as leading their offense. I think.
I think
be
Mikal
big
Claxton.
impact type guy. Say that again.
I think playing with Mikal Bridges and Claxton too will, like, I mean, I think he'll help Mikal Bridges out a lot too, and then he'll have a lob threat with Claxton, and you have like Cam Johnson.
Cam Thompson and Cam Johnson, both guys can double.
Could be a really nice team.
Yeah, I mean, if you put the ball in his hands, even as like a secondary creator next to Spencer Dinwiddie, it's going to make everyone's life so much easier, including like Nick Claxton. He's going to get easy looks.
Yeah, I think I don't hate the pick at all. I think it's just a weird. He's hard to analyze for like overrated and underrated, just because the majority of talk around Ben Simmons is literally about how good or how bad. It's literally about how overrated or underrated he is.
Yeah.
Like, right? That's literally kind of the majority of the talk. Cause like everybody, obviously at that time, where literally just everybody hated on him. It was just straight meme of Ben Simmons. It was a really bad situation for him. And now when he came back, I was wondering if people are still doing that, and some certainly are. But I actually think a lot of people are kind of loving on him. They're like, yeah, Ben Simmons is bad. Like, he's looking great, like, all the stuff. So I don't know if I would say he's number one underrated. He's just an interesting story as far as underrated, overrated kind of guy.
Valentine, you're number one. Who is the right number one?
Well, I was joking about that. Like I said, I really don't know who is the right number one, but my number one is Kevon Looney. Very important role for the Golden State Warriors, especially in the playoffs. Without him, they would have never gone as far as they did. He was getting 20 rebounds over Sabonis and Anthony Davis. Good playmaking for them, but I think the rebounding just gave the wins that they had without his rebound. Actually, I think every game that he got above 13 or 14 rebounds, they won.
Probably.
And which just shows how valuable his rebounding was, and being 6'8" or 6'9" that he is, getting 20 rebounds over Anthony Davis and Domantas Sabonis
Yeah.
is pretty crazy.
I mean,
I think.
Sabonis led the league in rebounding over the regular season. You can make a realistic argument that he was their second best player in the playoffs last year. Kevin Looney was. And, I mean, obviously that doesn't bode well for the Warriors' championship hopes, but like you don't want Kevin Looney as your second best player. But that just shows, I think, how good Kevin Looney was in his role. He's a star in his role. He rebounds like heck. He defends his butt off. And that's all he needs to do. And I mean, I still think the Warriors need size in terms of like backup. I don't know why they didn't sign Dwight Howard, but Kevon Looney is the perfect center for that role. Not to mention he's a good screener. He could play make at a relatively good level for his size. And yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. The only reason why I just don't get behind it for most underrated, because like you said, all he needs to do, I don't think he really does, is rebounding and hustle for defense. And I feel like everybody knows like he does that very well. And as far as like second best player, I would probably agree with that, but I feel like a lot of that has to do with just like you also pointed out the Warriors' inability to get someone else to do what he does, even though they should. And I just feel like as far as like just maybe underrating his value to the team, sure. As far as him as a player, I don't really think so. I feel like everybody knows like he does those things very well. Um,
But no one gave him credit for what he did for the team.
yeah, I was watching the
Wow.
playoffs. Everybody was talking about he getting 20 rebounds, but the next game he also only got like 6, by the way. But everyone talking about, yeah, he's getting rebounds, what he needs to do. But like he was the only one on the team to do that. Like everyone talks about that, but there's not anything else he brings to the game, and nobody else talks about anything else to the game he brings. People talk about his rebounding and their
scored pretty good. But I just think it's unfair when Jokic, when he's getting, I know he gets triple doubles with his reboundings, but people are like, oh, dude, he had 20 rebounds. That's pretty crazy. And Kevon Looney here got 23 against Anthony Davis, 21 against Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah.
And no one's like, oh, wow, that's crazy. I just think it's everyone's like,
I think what you're talking about right now is why he's underrated, because you're like, oh, all he has to do is rebound. But I think that is so important for the Warriors. I mean, they won a championship, and Kevon Looney was an essential cog because he got those secondary chances, especially against the Celtics. He got so many offensive rebounds.
Yeah, I fully agree. That's what I was saying. As far as his role in the team, yeah, you can say he's underrated, sure. As far as him as a player, I don't think so. Because like I said, everybody, especially even his role though in the playoffs, like the commentators, everyone's watching the game, they're talking about Looney, like he's getting boards. They kept putting his stat line up on the board, like they know he's good at boards. But I don't know any other player in NBA history nor anyone that's deserving of getting all this talk on ESPN all the time, and he got his fair share. But getting talked about it up till now, getting talked about whenever that he's this great player, because there's not like any big in throughout history. Dwight Howard that we just talked about, they get hyped because they're all-time elite defenders. They can score the ball. He doesn't bring any other things to the table, and he's a fine defender and he's a great rebounder. That's what he does. He gets credit for that. I don't feel like he's underrated particularly. You can say he's a little bit underrated. I think that's fine, but I just don't think he's number one overall rated. Like that's all he does, and he gets his credit for that. But I don't think that's a lot of hype that would be.
Wait, what you
There's-
And people know the Warriors need more.
What you
I
guys
think the other question too though is like Lauren said, I mean he's probably underrated, but is he more underrated than Chris Middleton, Dennis Schroeder, some of the other guys we mentioned? Like, do you think he is the most overrated player in the NBA above some of these guys that we've mentioned for this list, at least for
Not
top
to
five?
mention other guys that don't even have on my list.
Well, he
Mike
literally
Conley,
doesn't get
Keldon
any
Johnson.
light shined on Kaval Mooney. When's the last time you heard anything about him?
When's
I'm
the
saying
last
in the
time you heard
playoffs.
anything about
There's
Chris
only
Middleton?
3 other centers that I can think about that can get 20 plus rebounds consistently.
I mean,
And
I
he's
would,
not
I would be
considered
careful
top 5
saying
centers.
consistently, but he did it several times.
He did it 5 times in the playoffs.
I would say that's consistently.
I mean, one of them was against the Kings, who do have Sabonis, but I think
Sabonis is 7 foot.
Yeah, he leads the league in rebounding.
Yeah, who leads the league in rebounding?
I just think it's a bonus in the playoffs is just not nearly the type
Bonus
of rebounding threat
He's
that
still
a
at,
lot of
11
other players
rebounds?
are.
I'm pretty sure he still averaged 10 plus rebounds.
All right. Well, thank you guys for
That's
watching.
awesome,
Let us
man.
know who's the most underrated player in your opinion. Criticize us all you want. Call it Lauren an idiot all you want. We love to see it. Peace.